We have a pope, and this is a shocker, guys. He is American.
Hello there, friends. Welcome to the YouTube channel. Listen, we are going to do a little bit of reaction video here, share some articles as well, trying to make sense of what's happening here prophetically. There's a reason why I'm doing this. First of all, is because we want to make sure we don't go into the extremes as we speak about these issues. Let me open up my Bible here and share some things with you. Proverbs 26 verse 7 tells us the legs of the lame are never equal. So is a parable in the mouth of a fool. And the thing about the lame individual is that he's always limping, right? Because he's lame. One heel may be higher than the other. One leg is longer than the other. And he's oftentimes taking one step ahead while the other leg is left behind. And the idea is that if we want to talk about these issues as we seek to better make sense of what's happening prophetically, in the light of the gospel, we have to be very, very careful that we don't lose balance in the subject. And I think the balance element is so crucial. And also, this is something that you will find throughout the Bible as well when we speak about these things. Signs of the times, the new pope, what's happening? How do we address this matter? How do we keep our eyes on the signs of the times as we promote the gospel of Jesus Christ, exposing the men of sin? But how do we do that without going far into the extremes of making prophetic declarations that are not in fulfillment of Bible prophecy and pushing people in various camps of extremism? How do we not do that? Listen, it's not an easy thing, but it can be done by the grace of God. In Joshua chapter 1, I want you to notice what God says here in the word. Only be thou strong, very courageous, that thou mayest observe and do according to all the law, which Moses my servant commanded thee. Listen now, turn not from it to the right hand or to the left hand, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. Now, don't turn to the right hand nor to the left hand. You want to avoid religious extremism, far right. You also want to avoid religious liberalism, far left. So there has to be a balance in the way that we talk about these issues as well. There's a text in Ecclesiastes that I'm going to get a different version to show you the point that is being said here. Let's read this text right here. Ecclesiastes 7 verse 18. This is a good one. It is good that thou shouldest take hold of this. Yea, also from this we draw nigh thy hand. For he that feareth God shall come forth of them all. So the ones who fears God will avoid all extremes, not going too far in one direction, not too far in the opposite direction. Here is the NIV for this. I'm only using the NIV only to magnify what is being said in the King James Version here. Ecclesiastes 7 verse 18. This is actually what it means here. It is good to grasp the one and not let go of the other. Whoever fears God will avoid all extremes. So having said that, I think Doug Batchelor has got some remarks here that we are going to respond to. First of all, let's listen to what he has to say here about Donald Trump in the light of Bible prophecy. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Listen carefully now.
Okay, next question that we have. Do you think that Trump will be signing a law, a Sunday law, requiring people to worship on Sunday?
Okay, now I'm not a prophet or the son of a prophet, but you're asking what I think. I'm looking down the road a little further than President Trump. Part of the reason I think that's unlikely is because the president's daughter and son-in-law are Sabbath-keeping Jews. Members of his cabinet are a lot of members in his cabinet and his advisors. He grew up in New York City, where you've got the highest number of Orthodox Jews besides Israel. I really think that it's unlikely that that would happen. You know, anything could happen, but and the other reason I don't think that, no, who knows how it will be with the new Pope, but it wasn't a secret that Pope Francis and President Trump never saw eye to eye.
So keep in mind, this is an opinion that he is giving here. Is not doing an exhaustive Bible study. So I will come to his defense in part. Yes, it's an opinion. He's saying there's no way. It doesn't look like Trump will do such a thing based on these factors, right? So is he wrong or is he right? I want to hear from you. I'm going to share my thought a little bit later, so I want you to stay tuned. So that's one side of the issue as well. There was the other comment that we spoke about before, which was about Project 2025 as being a nothing burger.
Pastor Doug, do you believe that Project 2025 will bring in Sunday law?
The language I read in Project 2025, you maybe have heard the expression a nothing burger. I read it over and over again. I know people made a lot out of that. But if everything, first of all, the president doesn't have to follow anything that the Heritage Foundation is a think tank. He doesn't have to follow anything that they come up with. They're suggestions. Democrats have got the Council on American Progress. They've got their think tank. Republicans have their think tank. They come up with platform ideas. And there was something in there about protecting the time to worship on Sunday, or it says for some this would be Saturday. It was really protections for workers so that you either get extra time, extra payment. I didn't see that as a law compelling anybody to worship on that day. So if they're going by that, I didn't see the Sunday law that is compelling you to worship on that day in that language. I just have to be honest.
Okay.
But whenever you see the word Sunday and law in the same paragraph, it gets people pretty excited.
It does.
Okay, so he's trying to balance the conversation so much because, as Seventh Adventists, if we're not careful, we tend to go to the extreme in the way we interpret Bible prophecy. So that's why I quoted that text earlier. It is good to grasp the one and not let go of the other. Whoever feels God will avoid all extremes. So we do need to speak about the prophecies. We do need to expose what is happening in the light of biblical prophecies as well. However, you got to be careful that you don't go too far into saying things and making proclamations that are not true. I've actually seen people done that. Not good. But nevertheless, we do have to do that. But I'll tell you though, I do find we have more of an issue with people not saying enough. I do understand the extremists and the people who take things too far, who become extremely radical in the way that they interpret Bible prophecies as they go with the Pope and they start saying things. But I've seen more of the issues that we have is that we don't have enough people actually pointing out the prophetic events and giving a rightful interpretation. We have those who become extremes in the same process. Son Boonstra has an article here from Adventist Review. Some things in here I like, some things I don't. But nevertheless, I will say the thought, the main idea, I respect. I respect it. He spoke about the conclave and the election of the new pope, but I want to highlight this part of his article here where he is speaking about the extremism that can be in many Seventh-day Adventists as well. So what was confusing, Pope Leo XIV is the first American pope, a fact that is sure to stir Adventist prophetic imaginations. Back when John F. Kennedy became the first Catholic president in America, many suspected that the beginning of the end had arrived. After all, we know the moment is coming when the first and second beasts will join hand across the gulf and usher in a revival of the oppressive state of Christianity that dominated the West throughout the medieval period. This part, I have to slightly disagree. The first and second beasts will join hands. I will say they are joining hands. It's actually happening. So I don't want to push that too far into the future either. That's the stuff we kind of have to be careful with. At the same time, we don't want to say it is over. It is done, but we have a first American pope. We are seeing a return to Catholicism. We are seeing America totally becoming more Catholics in nature. And the first and second beasts are uniting. Now, have they come to a full and complete union yet? No, but there is a coming together. There is a courtship happening, and it won't be long before a wedding takes place. Now, we are told, furthermore, in the document, when you have an American president who belongs to a global organization that aspires to global powers, it is not hard to see the potential for the rapid movements we have been told are coming. So that's why I don't understand. If you say that aspect of it, and again, we're not attacking Sean Boonstra, we're addressing the words and what's being said. So that's true. So in other words, when you see these movements, you can also see why first and second beasts are working together. So you can't push the prophecies too far into the future, but at the same time, you don't want to make too much of the prophecies either, right? You start making proclamations that are not there.
We have a pope, and this is a shocker, guys. He is American.
We witnessed history made here late today, the first ever American pope.
Cardinal Robert Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV, the head of the Catholic Church. The shock. This is groundbreaking in many ways.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
It's a beautiful day in the life of the Catholic Church and in the life of every person on earth.
How did today feel? Overjoyed.
Just wonderful.
Just totally overjoyed. We're floating.
It was just kind of flabbergasting, honestly. I've known him for a little while, a man of great intelligence. A lot of us were saying, myself included, they'll never elect an American pope. Well, they did.
So certainly pay attention to the times, we are told, but never prioritize prophetic speculation over the work we have been given to do. So yes, the work matters, but nevertheless, be careful with the speculations. I totally respect that. He made reference to John F. Kennedy assassinations as well. Talks about when we had the first American president who was a Roman Catholic. How much of a thing that happened with that. I remember John Paul II and Benedict XVI. People were making all kind of prophetic application. Pope Francis came and gone, and we are still here, right? If prophecy continually scare you, you might just be reading it wrong, right? The prophecies are not meant to scare you. And I think there is an element of fear connected to Bible prophecies. And sometimes the way it is presented by some people, I notice the fear is the core that controls their members to keep listening and coming back. I will say, I don't think we should be using Bible prophecy to keep people in a state of fear. Bible prophecy should give us a sense of urgency, but the eyes must be set on Christ. So even Revelation start with verse 1, the revelation of Jesus Christ. It's not the revelation of the man of sin or the Antichrist, although these elements and players are exposed throughout the book of Revelation. But ultimately, the Lamb is the essential aspect of the book. 27 times is mentioned, 26 times in Revelation, it refers to Jesus Christ. So we want to be careful in the way that we talk about these issues as we speak about them, expose these issues, and I will do that. That's my strong suit. I will share the prophecies. But friends, we're not going to go into the extremes. Amen. One of the biggest side benefits of remaining concentrated on our mission is the mitigation of fear. Sometime when we become obsessed with interpreting current events, we begin to lose focus on seemingly scary things that are predicted in scriptures. But if prophecies continue to scare you, you might just be reading it wrong. Grab a concordance sometime and look up Jesus references fear. Read Paul's prediction in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Note his commitment to calmness. It is true. It all depends how it is presented. You can present the prophecies to create fear, or you can present the prophecy to create urgency, right? And you can also present the prophecies in a light of the gospel. For example, here is how Ellen White balanced the whole thing for us, right? She said here, let Daniel speak, let Revelation speak. And what else? Tell what is truth. But whatever phase of the subject is presented, uplift Jesus as the center of our hope, the root and the offspring of David, the bright and morning star. To deal with the fear element. Now, there are different ways that the subject is presented. We present things differently in this channel. I use different means and different approach to speak on the Bible prophecies. There are others who are doing the same, but they do it in different ways. We are gifted differently to address this issue. But when this is done, however it is done, Jesus has to be the center of the prophecy. It cannot be some man who lives in St. Peter Basilicus. It cannot be. You see, this is where we go far into the extremes, and we have to avoid that. So I do respect this element of the council as well. In the next paragraph, Boonstra added, yes, Pay attention to what's happening, but take the signs of the times as God intended. Evidence that he is keeping his promise to redeem us and that nothing that happens will catch heaven by surprise. There really is someone watching what's happening, and we can leave the worry entirely to him. In closing, he said this: yes, something unprecedented happened at the conclave, and yes, it might mean something, but that's it. Now, get back to work, because your neighbors are still hopeless without Jesus. I agree with that also, but I will also add this. Get back to work. Proclaim the prophecies. Magnify Christ. Focus on service, right? Focus on service, but continue to draw closer. Sanctification, justification, draw closer in your relationship with Jesus Christ. So there has to be a balance to this idea. I also love what, I posted this on my channel as well. This is Pastor Anslam Paul. A prophetic reflex or a real alarm for Christians who interpret prophecy through the lens of Revelation 13 and the warnings of works like Ellen White, The Great Controversy. Moments like this often trigger a reflective fear response. Any hint of increased Catholic influence, especially when tied to American political and religious identity, gets read as a sign that the end is near. This instinct isn't baseless. Revelation 13 describes a union between two powers symbolized by a beast from the sea, interpreted historically as the papacy, and the beast from the earth, interpreted as the United States, that will enforce worship, violate conscience, and persecute dissent. So when an American pope is elected and takes the name of the very man who condemn Americans' spiritual influence and growing independence from papal authority, it's understandable that some Adventists will start blowing the prophetic trumpet. But, and here's a good point here, but we must also be careful not to confuse reaction with revelation. Every major development isn't necessarily the development. The danger of crying wolf too often is real, very real. But so much more so is the danger of silence when the wolf actually comes. So we have to be careful with the silence. I'll be honest with you. When I look at our church, we have a silence issue on the prophetic events. The average local church is not hearing the prophecies. You have to go online, come to Avenue Media Connect to get it. But I would tell you what, there are some extremes as well. There are some extremes who are always crying wolf all the time. They lose credibility when things don't happen the way that they should. The focus should be, as Jesus says it in Luke chapter 16. We have to look at the signs of the times as they are fulfilling Bible prophecy. The Pharisees also and the Sadducees came to him, tempting him, desire him that he will show them a sign from heaven. And he answered and said unto him, when it is evening, you say it will be a fair weather, for the sky is red. In the morning, it will be a foul weather. Today, for the sky is red and lowering. O ye hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky, but can you not discern the signs of the times? The rebuke is, the signs of the times are the evidence. It is not centered on an individual. Neither do you need some kind of miracles, but the signs of the times are the evidence through which we ought to read the lens and understand and interpret biblical prophecies. So the events are very much crucial to our understanding. For example, let me give you one of the priests. You're going to see how Ellen White is so balanced. So in Evangelism 2:33, look what she says. In the very time in which we live, the Lord has called his people and has given them a message to bear. He has called him to expose the wickedness of the men of sin, who has made the son-in-law a distinctive power, who has thought to change times and laws, to oppress the people of God who stand firmly to honor him by keeping the only true Sabbath, the Sabbath of creation, as holy unto the Lord. So Seventh-day Adventist has been called. One of our missions is to expose the men of sin. So this should be done, and it must be done. However, if that's all you do, you're going to become an extremist. If that's all you talk about, if you turn the entire gospel about Mr. Antichrist and everything the Pope is doing, that becomes a problem. Now, should we highlight what's happening? Yes. Should we point our finger and show the people where we are in the prophetic events? Of course we should. However, we must not center every prophecy on a man that lives in St. Peter Basilicas, friends. It cannot be the case. This is the reason why there has to be a balance. Now, look what she says now. We are going to read now in Manuscript Releases 21 now, 437. The signs of the times are fast fulfilling. The time of trouble is very near us at now. We are to be brought into straight places in a way in which we have not been brought heretofore. The time of trouble is near, and we ought to awake to a realization of this. We ought to be sure that our feet are in the narrow path. We need an experience that we have not yet had, that we may have the assurance that God of all grace is very present, help in time of trouble. The time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, is right upon us. And we are like the sleeping virgins. We ought to awake and ask the Lord Jesus to place underneath us his everlasting arms and carry us through the time of trouble before us. And you notice again, the time of trouble is upon us. Time of trouble is upon us. She's urging the church to stay awake, be alert, because trouble is coming. So in other words, the prophecies are supposed to help the people of God to stay alert and awaken. Failure to preach them puts the church to sleep. But too much prophecies as well will create troubles among the people of God that we don't need right now. So here is where she balanced the thing. Now you move over. Mind, Character, and Personality, Volume 2, 470, Paragraph 2. Now, we want to act like individuals who are redeemed by the blood of Christ. We ought to rejoice in the blood of Christ, in the forgiveness of sins. This is what we ought to do. May God help us to get our minds off the dark pictures and think on those things that will give us light. Now I want to read another scripture. Be careful for nothing. Philippians chapter 4 verse 6. What does that mean? Why? Don't cross a bridge before you get to it. Don't make a time of trouble before it comes. You will get to it soon, brethren. We ought to think of today. If we do well the duties of today, we will be ready for the duties of tomorrow. Friends, these also are the words of Jesus, because Christ in Matthew chapter 6 said the same thing. So as we see these things happening, Jesus says, take no thought for your life. Don't worry about your life. Don't be concerned. Don't make trouble before it is too soon. But at the same time, remain alert, awaken, be urgent, and draw closer to Christ and pay attention, watch and pray, because we are living in troublous times. And then look what he says here. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Therefore, take no thought for tomorrow. For tomorrow shall take thought of the things of itself. Sufficient unto today is the evil thereof. While we ought to pay attention to these prophetic events and make sense of them as they are being fulfilled, let's be careful that we don't go into the extreme camps of going about with making interpretation, creating a sense of fear in the hearts of God's people, starting trouble that we do not need right now. At the same time, we must not fail to sound the alarm. We must not become dumb dogs who refuse to bark and not letting the people know where we are in those prophetic events. There has to be a balance. And when this is being done as well, remember what Ellen White says. We ought to not only let Daniel speak, let Revelation speak, but at the same time, lift up Jesus as the center of all hope, the bright and the morning star. I want to end here with this final video from Doug Batchelor. What he says, actually, in this point, I agree 100%. He speaks about the signs of the times, and what we need to keep an eye on are the events or the crises that may take place that can shift the prophetic landscape. Take a listen.
Can you please review the timeline of events when church and state are joined? Kind of an overview of what are the steps that's going to happen here in our country to lead into the image of the beast?
You know exactly what the steps would be? Well, like I said, there could be some kind of a tragedy that would drive people out of fear to compel people to say, we've got to turn back to God. It could be war. It could be an economic meltdown where America, being the power, would have a lot of clout at a time like that. It could be a natural disaster or something. But that's going to get people to say, look, we've got to get back to God, and they're going to have wonderful arguments, and they'll have some valid arguments or it would never fly. And then they're going to say, everyone's got to go to church. And we need to start protecting, we got to force people to keep the 10 Commandments. We need morality. Well, when they say the 10 Commandments, they're probably going to say, we all need to be in church on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And as the calamities continue to fall, they'll say, well, there's this group that's resisting. And you can get persecuted for resisting. And you could get persecuted. What we're saying now, I'm hoping that's not pulled from the internet as some kind of hate speech. We're just giving you Protestant teaching. But this is not going to be popular soon.
Yeah.
I found the quote I wanted to share with our friends.
Yeah, go ahead.
And this is from, you can find it in The Great Controversy. It's in the book Maranatha. Protestants of the United States will be foremost in stretching their hands across the gulf to grasp the hand of spiritualism. They will reach over the abyss to clasp the hands with the Roman power, and under the influence of this threefold union, this country will follow in the steps of Rome. This is the image of the beast, in trampling on the rights of conscience. And you can find that in Maranatha, page 190. So I think that we are on the cusp of these things happening, where you're going to see some event. You know, if you were to say, is this going to happen tomorrow? No, I don't think so. Something's got to happen that is going to drive people to church out of fear. Look what happened after 9/11. Everybody became our church was just exploding with attendance. People saw those apocalyptic events and they were afraid and they ran to church, and people are willing to make laws and sacrifice freedoms when they're afraid.
That's right.